Good morning. Today is 9/28. This is CIS 2400. I hope you guys are doing good. You're continuing to observe the social distance, wearing your mask, washing your hands, and hopefully this thing will go away. Now, the health officials, according to the news, they are saying that we might actually see a spike come October because of the Labor Day. So just make sure that you're staying safe. Also, I hope that you are ready to vote. If not, make sure you register. I can tell you whom to vote for, but one thing that I will encourage you to do is make sure that you actually participate, because all those politicians, the policies that they're going to be implementing in one way or another, they are going to impact you. So at least make sure that you participate. That's what good citizens do. Okay, so I checked your assignments from last week. I have not graded them. I will, but some of you did not do the discussion, and these assignments are designed to help you. So when we give you these tools like the voice thread, we are trying to help you improve your communication skills, something that I've mentioned over and over again. So if you're doing these assignments, well and good. If you're not, like we have mentioned before, you can take a donkey or a cow to the river, but you cannot force it to drink. So that's where we are. So this is the week of the exam. The exam will cover chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and chapter 4. It's going to be multiple choice. You have 50 questions, and you will have, I think, 1 hour and a half to do the exam. The exam will be available from Wednesday, and you'll only need to set maybe a 2 hour window when you do the exam. Once you start the exam, you will have to finish. So 50 questions, 1 hour and a half. If you need extra time, let me know. We can make arrangements for that. And you need to have some sort of accommodation letter or something like that. So let me know. So what I'm going to do is I will go through some of the things that you need to be aware of for the exam, kind of like a review. And then at the end, I'll give you some time to ask any questions or any clarifications. But before we continue, any question?
No.
Okay, so this video will be recorded. If you want to come back and look at it later, you can do that. So what I'm going to do is I'll walk through some things that I picked that are going to be in the exam that you should maybe pay a little bit attention to. So when we were looking, I think, on chapter 4 on security, we mentioned about people who are called hackers. So have a good understanding of who the hackers are. So you might find a question that's going to be asking you to give the difference between the different type of hackers. So be aware of what a hacker is and the different types of hackers that there are. Also, we mentioned, I think, in chapter 3 in electronic business, when people are doing advertising, there are some words that they can use to help people get the message out there. And you see those ones, especially on Google. So if you see something like a difference between a shopping cart, intermediaries, AdWord, what do those ones mean? And then when a company is deciding on implementing a project, there are some techniques that they use. So have a good understanding of what is value chain analysis, what is the SWOT, remember this, strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and the Potter's 5 competitive forces. So that will also help you. We mentioned, I think, also on artificial intelligence. So know what is artificial intelligence, and then what are some of the areas that artificial intelligence is applicable to. So if you come across a question that talks about something like the virtual reality, things like machine learning, what are those? So the exam is going to be multiple choice, but they're also going to be what's called the checkbox, whereby you're given like 5 questions and you have to pick 3 by checking a box. So multiple choice, checkbox, yeah, things like that. Okay, what else are you going to find there? Uh, Information reach, what is that? Okay, what is different between information reach and information richness and information age? So be aware of such concept. Then when you're working in a computer environment, and sometimes you'll find that the network goes down. So that's what we call downtime. And sometimes you'll find that a company has what's called planned and unplanned downtime. So planned downtime is like, for instance, when you get an email from NCCU saying that you're going to be updating Blackboard and it's going to be available between this time. Most of the companies do their maintenance, which is what's called the planned downtime, on the weekend and maybe very late at night when there is very few people who are using those systems. We also have what's called unplanned downtime. So sometimes something might happen to the system. So things like power outages, when you have tornadoes, when you have network failures. So those are part of what you call the unplanned downtime. So you might come across a question that is giving you like 5 choices, and you have to choose 3 that are examples of what you're calling unplanned downtime. Okay, so in terms of the information age, this is where we are. Information age, that's the time that we are living in. So what are some of the factors that have enabled us to reach the information age, or what are the factors that can be used to describe the information age? So of course, the information is one of them. And then before you get to information, you got data. So you have to have that relationship. You have data, then you have information. From information, you have what? Knowledge. And then from knowledge, you go to what? Business intelligence. You need to be able to, if you're given all those, you need to be able to arrange them and know what comes first. Are we together?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so this will be posted. If you want to come back and look at it later, you can do that. And I'm looking at big data. We have mentioned about big data. When you hear the word big data, what comes to your mind? Okay, so we say we have all these different devices that are able to access the internet. Your phone is an example. If you are at home, you have a smart TV, that's another example. Some people, they have a car, that's another example. Some fridge, they have some data. So all these devices that are connected to the internet, they are generating a lot of data. So when you're looking at the big data, what are some of the characteristics or some of the factors that can be used to describe big data? Of course, big, because of all those things that I've given you, there is something that's called virality, okay? And then there is veracity. A lot of data is coming in, okay? If there is veracity, if there is big, it's going to be something called volume. Okay, so if you're given a list of factors or characteristics, you have to pick some that define what big data is. So at least make sure that you're aware of that. Okay, now in terms of protecting the information in an organization, that's what we did in chapter 4. What are some of the things that we can use to make sure that companies are protecting the information? Okay, so one thing is what is called ethics. Okay, so ethics, we say those are the good behaviors that people have to do to adhere to. So if you have a bank and you go to check your balance, the bank ensures that nobody knows about what your balance. That's part of what you're calling ethics. And then things like security. Okay, so make sure that if you're given a list, you can pick the ones that are allowing companies to secure their data. Social networks, be familiar with that. And then you talked about the key performance indicators. So a company has a strategy, and for it to achieve a strategy, they set what you're calling performance indicators. What are some of the things that a company looks at to make sure that they are meeting their strategy? Okay, so if a company wants to make sure that they have very good customer service, how can they, what is one of the factors that they can use to make sure that they are meeting that they have very good customer service? Okay, so one of the factors may be something like maybe how many calls are answered in a minute. Okay, because if you're answering if customers don't have to wait for a long time for the calls to be answered, then they're going to be probably comfortable. And we are hoping that the calls are being answered in the right way. Okay, if you're trying to make sure that you have a higher number of sales, so you have a higher sale volume and you're creating some profit, maybe you might be able to study and see how many items are customers returning. Okay, so if customers are returning a lot of your product, then it means something is wrong with your what? With your product. And then you might have to go back and change the design and things like that. Okay, if you're trying to make sure that your employees are happy, now we have seen some surveys that have actually gone out and say that these are the best companies to work for. So if you are trying to make sure that your company is very good and your employees are very happy, then you can look at something like the turnover rate. Okay. So turnover rate means how often are employees leaving your work and you have to hire them. Because when you hire people, you have to train them, and that leads to loss for the organization. So high turnover rate is not a good factor for a company. So make sure that you're aware of that. Okay, structured data, know what that means. Any questions so far before we keep going?
No.
Okay. FedEx and UPS, efficiency, things like that. Now, e-business marketing. We talked about in chapter 3. What is e-business? We talked about e-business, electronic business, and in terms of marketing, what are some of the strategies that companies use to ensure that they are meeting the objectives in the e-business? Okay, so you have things like banner ads, you have cookies, you have freemium, you have viral marketing, okay, affiliate program. We mentioned all those, so be aware of that. So usually what you might say some questions will give you a list, and at least you have to know which out of those lists go together. Okay, process models. We talked about assays and to be. So what basically we're working with we talked about the business process, and you say these are the steps that you have to follow to achieve a certain objective or to complete a certain task. So when you go to a store and you want to buy, you walk in, you get the shopping cart, walk in through the aisle, pick your item, put them in the cart, you go to the checkout register, you pay, and then you out. So that's what you're calling a process. If you're going to be improving that process, so what you start with is as is, so the process as it is now, and then you have the process to be. You design and then see where you're going to, which changes you're going to make, and that new process is what's called the to be. Okay, so you might say something that is asking you what is assays, what is to be, and then artificial intelligence and assays and AI and all that. So key thing is assays and to be. Okay, which of the following examples of critical success factors? So remember, key performance indicators and critical success factors. Those are two different components, but they are related. Okay, so remember we talked about when you're looking at the number of calls that you are answering per minute. So the critical success factor will be increasing the customer satisfaction, and the key performance indicators will be the number of calls that are answered within a given period. Okay, retain competitive advantage, that will be a critical success factor. Now, key performance indicators will be, for instance, the number of what products that are being returned. Okay, so note that the difference between critical success factors and key performance indicators. So the key performance indicators are used to measure whether we are meeting the critical success factors. Okay, so number of employees that are leaving the company, that will be a key performance indicator, and the critical success factor might be something like you hire and retain the best business professionals. Make sense?
Yeah.
So another question that you might see, and it might give you like a list of questions, is you might see something that is asking you the types of internet monitoring technology. So remember we said when you're working for a company, you have to be very careful because everything that you do on those companies' resources, computers, that information and knowledge, whatever you're doing belongs to the company. So some of the techniques that companies use to see what their employees are doing and also what you can use for marketing is things like the keylogger. So with the keylogger is you have a keyboard, anything that you type on the keyboard can actually be archived and somebody can come back and see what you're typing. Something like the clickstream. So clickstream we said is what? It's like the footprints that you create when you're in the internet. If you go and take a walk on the beach, sometimes you leave your footsteps. And if somebody wants to track you, they can follow those what? Those steps. So that's in the internet, we call that the clickstream. Weblog is from the word log. So you have a log, okay? And for the weblog is a list that shows the websites that you've been to and what you're doing and things like that. Advertising, adware, companies can also do that, okay? So there's nothing called mail bomb. MIS monitoring doesn't happen. ITI spam policy, no. And stealthware, no. Okay, what is the difference between a business model and an e-business model? You should know that. Okay, which of the following are considered data? Okay, data. So remember when somebody goes to a store, when we say somebody asks you for your zip code, that will be the data. Number of items sold, that will be data. The customer number, okay, the order date, all that is data. And then once you combine that, now you have the information. So the key thing here is that you need to know the difference between data and information. Okay, so anything that is combining more than one item, that's not data. So if you see something like the best customer by month, that's not data, that's already information. Because for you to get the best customer by month, it means that you have what? A list of very many customers, which is data, and then you have what? A couple of months, which is data. When you combine those two, now you have the information and you're making decision. So note that. Okay, Potter's five forces, you should be able to do that. And clickstream, what is that? We talked about that already. Okay, so if there is something that comes up and does not initially meet the needs of the existing customer, so that is in the innovation. Okay, so in innovation, we say innovation is when you come up with a new product, a new business process, or a new way of doing something, and you have to understand what is disruptive technology. Okay, so that is something that comes up, and at the beginning, people don't even see the use for it. Okay, like when Netflix came up, people are like, "What is that?" Okay, but now we are all there. Airbnb, when it came up, we're like, "Oh, really?" Same thing with Uber. So those are examples of what you're calling disruptive technology because when they appear in the market, people usually don't see the need for them. But as time goes by, through what's called adoption and diffusion of innovation, people come to accept them and they end up changing people's life. Okay, so the key difference here is to know the difference between disruptive technology and sustaining technology. Okay, so sustaining is just keeping things the way they are. Okay, strategic decision, know what that is. And we said strategy is long term, tactical is short term. Okay, operational, tactical, that's the same. Strategic is long term, 3 to 5 years. Operational, tactical, one, uh, maximum of 1 year, I think. Okay, so if you have a website and you're doing an e-business, you want to know how long customers stay on your website. Okay, that's something that we call the stickiness. Like when you stick something, okay, so you stick and you want to know how long does it stay on the wall. So that's what you're calling the stickiness. How long do the customers stay on your website? Freemium, we say it's those things that you'll get for free on the internet. And sometimes we think that is free, but you have to remember there's no free lunch. Okay, because somebody gives you something free and you think that information is free, there's something behind it. Maybe they'll pop up, something will pop up, some advertisement here and there. Just like Google. We think that when we are Googling stuff is free, but remember, Google doesn't sell anything. They make their money through advertising. Any question?
No.
Are we making sense or we need to stop?
No, you're making sense.
Hector, are we?
Nope, everything sounds good to me.
I'm sorry?
Everything sounds good.
Okay, Makila,
No.
we should continue or stop? Okay, so next item is which of the following are included as common decision support system analysis techniques? So this is actually something that we did in CIS 1100. Decision support system. So decision, we are trying to make a decision, but you're trying to use the information system to help us in making those decisions. So you're given a data on a worksheet and you have to analyze that data to come up with a decision. So we looked at things like what if analysis. We looked at something like sensitivity analysis, where we adjusted the value of one variable and then we see how it affects other variables. We did goal seeking analysis, if you remember that. Okay. and you also did some optimization. So you have one value and you're trying to optimize it to see what's going to be the impact. So those are some of the techniques that you can use to help you with decision support. Okay, what if, sensitivity, goal seeking, optimization. So know what those things are. Okay, so Porter has three generic strategies. We said Walmart, they are based on cost, and Apple, we said, is based on innovation. And then we have some other companies that will be based on what's called focus. So they are not trying to like target large portion of the population. They only target a small portion of the population. So at least know about what you're calling Porter's generic strategies. So for a company, how do they achieve their strategy? Okay, so we have cost, you have focus, and you have differentiation. Cost leadership also out there. Okay, four main types of business models. E-business, actually. I think we had that table where we had business to business, consumer to consumer, things like that. So be aware of that, those four e-business models. Somebody might ask you, what is the Internet of Things? And by now, at least you should know what that is. Okay, so be aware of that. Social media, you're very much on the internet, so you're very engaged in social media. So know what is social media monitoring. And then Web 3.0. So we mentioned about Web 1.0 all the way at the beginning, okay, where everything was static, websites were static. Then we had Web 2.0. We had some animations on the website. We could include some voice and things like that. And now we are moving towards what we are calling Web 3.0. We are bringing in more interactivity on the internet. So we have things like machine-based learning, we have machine-based reasoning, we have artificial intelligence. So we are looking at intelligent applications. So know the characteristics of Web 1.0, Web 2.0, and Web 3.0. Okay, so how websites generate revenue? Okay, know things like what is the difference between pay per click, pay per call, and pay per conversion. Okay, so know that. And then we say sometimes what will happen is you have a uniform resource locator, like when you go to Google and you type a search word and you're looking for pizza or something like that, there are going to be some websites that are going to pop up on top. So there is actually a concept that you can use on the internet that's called search engine optimization to kind of enable your website to bubble up or come up higher. And some of the search engines, actually, some companies pay for that. Okay, so that's not what is called search engine optimization, because you might be managers out there and somebody asks you, how can I make sure that when people are searching for pizza or they are searching for any other item, that my website comes up? So they can apply that concept of what's called the search engine optimization, SEO. Okay, information policy. Anytime that you go on the internet and you're downloading something, you always get a full list of information that says, please read this before you download. Most of us don't do that, but that's part of what you're calling notice and disclosure. And most of these companies want to make sure that you know what they're doing with your information, which we rarely read. So notice and disclosure is what companies do to make sure that people know what they're doing with their information. Data analytics. So we say that data analytics is whereby you're making decision based on facts. You're making decision based on facts. Okay. So some of the types of what you're calling advanced analytics is like things that you're calling behavior analysis, where you look at the people and you study their behavior, and based on how they behave, then you'll know how you're going to target them or what they're buying and what they are not buying. Okay, same thing on the internet. Most of you are on the internet. Most of the companies now actually are going to the internet, try and look at people's social network interactions, because that will tell them something about you. So that's part of what you're calling social media analysis. We have text analysis, what people type, that can also be used to do that. And then also things like the web analysis. So basically, this is a part of what we are calling advanced data analytics. So know what that means. What is behavior analysis? What is social media analysis? What is text analysis? What is web analysis? And then what is remaining here? So operations management department. So we said most of the companies are structured based on function. So by function, we mean you have an accounting department, you have a finance department, you have a marketing department, you have an IT department, you have an operations management department. So in the value chain, if you remember, I talked about the value chain. Okay, so the value chain is whereby you're looking at the different departments in the organization, and there is one that's called the operations management. Okay, so what are some of the business processes that you'll find in an operations management department? Okay, so things like the inventory, that's going to be in the operations management. Okay, now calculating return on investment, that is something that you'll probably find in the what? The finance or accounting department. Payment of account receivable, probably accounting and finance. Okay, creating production schedules, that will be probably in the operations management. Manufacturing, probably operations. Securing the information system, that will be probably in the IT. Okay, so note about the different functions and what happens in those different departments in the organization. Okay, know the difference between what's called a tangible and an intangible. So intangible is something that you cannot touch. Tangible is something that you can touch. Okay, so when you talk about something like intellectual property, you cannot touch that. Okay, so probably that will be what? Okay, so something that you cannot touch. Okay, what is big data? You should know that. Sometimes you'll see some acronyms, like they ask you, what is IT, information system? What is MIS, management information system? What is API, application programming interface? So know some of those acronyms, okay? Now, CIA, what does the CIA do? Are they spies? Maybe, maybe not, okay? So I said some of the language that you're going to see in the MIS, management information system, is very similar to what we see in our everyday lives. So you have something like spyware. What is that? Okay. So we are saying is a special class of what? Adware from advertising. Okay. And usually they're using it for collecting data about the user and they transmit it over the internet. Okay. So spyware, you know what that is. Managerial decision, what is that? Forecast, decision support system, do that. So when you're looking at security in an organization, what is the first line of defense? Okay, so any now remember we said management information system combines technology, which is hardware, software, and then business procedures and people. Okay, you cannot have management information system without the people. Okay, so when you're looking at security, the first line of defense in any organization is going to be people. Okay, because if you just leave computers by themselves, they will never mess each other. But most of the security issues is because of human beings. So if you're going to be securing the company, you have to make sure that you first consider people who are using those resources, and then technology comes first. Okay, so people first, technology second. Okay, so when you're looking at a company and you have what you're calling the pyramid, remember I said most of the companies are structured by function. Okay, so what a company does, if you look at, for instance, a manufacturing company, you'll have at the bottom what you're calling the operation. Okay, and the same way, if you go to a Walmart, you walk into a Walmart, at that store, you'll find a lot of operations, what's happening up there. And then when you go to the next level of Walmart, then you'll find what you're calling the management. Okay, usually you don't see the manager when you walk into a Walmart. Okay, you just see the employees. That's who are at the floor. That's what you're calling the operation. And then you have the manager who are at a higher level. And usually you'll have the manager in the store. Then you might have like a regional manager who is managing the stores in one geographical location. And then you move to higher level and you have what you're calling the strategic. So that's like the head office where they're making all those decisions. So if Walmart is going to be automating their self-checkout register like they have done now, that is not a decision that is made at the local store. Probably that is a decision that's made at the corporate level, where is the strategic, because usually such an initiative takes a number of years to be implemented and for them to get what you're calling the return on investment. So when you're looking at a company, you're going to see companies are going to be structured based on what you're calling the operational and then managerial and then strategic. So you might find a question that is asking you to rank those three in terms of like kind of like a pyramid, and you're doing it from the bottom to the top. So be very careful. Read the question very clearly. Okay. Okay, so sometimes we mention about companies doing some things that can be considered legal, illegal, or they can be considered ethical or unethical. So, and we say there is one pyramid where most of the companies want to be. So you want to make sure that most of the business operations are in that pyramid. Okay, so if you remember, we had different pyramid. We have a rectangle that had like four boxes, and we had legal, illegal, ethical, unethical, and we said you want to make sure that you are in the legal and the ethical box. Okay, so you execute the business strategy through the value chain analysis. So you have to remember we have the 5 forces, we have the SWOT analysis, we have the 3 generic strategies, but the way that we ensure that we are meeting our business strategy is through what you're calling the value chain analysis. So from like for a restaurant, they can talk about what they call from the farm to the table. Okay, whereby you're following to make sure that you know where your products are coming, and then those products, how are they sourced, all the way like that. That's what you call the value chain analysis, and that's how we execute our business strategy. Okay, we're almost done. In case somebody is wondering, when is this gonna be over? Updated. Okay, let's see that. So if you have two devices that are communicating with each other, that's what you call machine to machine. And what is an open system? What is the reputation system? And I think the last one is what is information? So we have talked about the data. Now we're talking about information. So quantity sold, is that data or information? Somebody?
What was the question?
Okay, so I'm going to read you the question, and we have 5 people who are here. So everybody's going to answer one, and you're going to tell me whether that is data or that is information. So listen, we're going to start with Atom, and then you're going to go to Chamber.
Really?
And yeah, I think I need to get that correct. And then Hector, Jalen, and then Michaela. So let's start. Which of the following are considered information? Quantity sold. Autumn. So you tell me whether that is information or not. Is that information?
Yes.
I'm going to read the question again. So you're telling me your answer is either yes or no. Which of the following are considered information? Quantity sold,
No.
quantity sold. Okay, that's not information. Okay, which of the following are considered information? Best customer by month.
No.
Is that info? No, next person is information. You say
Yes.
no or yes. Okay, that's information.
Yes, it
Okay,
is.
best selling item by month. Hector, is that information?
No.
Best selling item by month.
Wait. Oh, wait, by month you said?
Is that information or data?
That's information, right?
Okay, very good. Next is Jalen. Customer number, is that information or data?
Data.
Okay, very good. And the last one is order date. Is that information or data? Michaela? Probably left. That's data. So remember, the information has to combine more than one item. If it's just one item, just one fact, that's data. If you have more than one fact, then that becomes information. So in this case, best customer by month, best selling item by month, that is information. And then the other ones, quantity sold, just one fact, customer number, one fact, order date, one fact, that is data. So that is it. If you go through those concepts, you should not have any issue in the exam. Any questions?
Will
No.
it be timed?
Yes, the exam will be 1 hour, I think 20 minutes or 30 minutes, like 80 minutes, 50 questions, multiple choice, and checkbox. Like you're given a set of 5 answers, you pick 3.
Thank you.
And our exam is on.
Yeah, so the exam you can access it, I think, on Blackboard, but you need to have access to, what is that thing called? You need to have Connect, yeah, to do it. So the exam will be available on Wednesday, and you have to be done by when? I think by Saturday. So by Saturday 11 p.m. you should be done. So you have Wednesday, that Friday, and Saturday. You only need 2 hours. Set a 2-hour window, and then you do it. Once you start, you'll have to finish. So that should be it. Exam will be available on Wednesday, and you'll have 80 minutes. If you need accommodation, let me know. Any other question? Okay, so if there's no question, then since we are having the exam this week, I'm hoping that you'll be able to do your exam and then start working on chapter 5. We're going to have our regular class next week on Monday. Okay, so make sure you go through chapter 5 and at least look at the questions so that when we meet, we'll have a more productive class. So I'm going to stop recording this.